I'm in that small screen again. Hang on, let me. There we go. Good evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? Is Sunday, the 7th of September, 2025. Can't believe we're in September already. Isn't time just flying by? Hope you're well. Hope you've had a really good week. We're back again this week. Time for our weekly live show. And this week, I want to talk about growing garlic. This is one of those things that I absolutely love to do. I love growing garlic. For me, I mean, I love garlic anyway. I use it a lot in cooking, so I want to grow enough to see me throughout the year. We can do that. But I also love growing garlic because it looks like something is going on down on the allotment or in the kitchen garden throughout the winter months. It just adds a bit of interest, something going on. We'll get into that in just a moment because it is nearly garlic growing time. But first of all, let's see who we've got watching. Over on Instagram, we can see Elaine Vincent has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. Adrian is there saying hello, Richard and all. Hello to you. We've got Digwell. Should be interesting. Never tried hot aioli. Hot aioli. Hot aioli? Where have I said that? I've probably said something wrong somewhere. Anyway, Gary, good evening. We'll be in and out of the conversation this evening, but we'll have you on the telly, so hopefully you can listen. Jenny says, hello, everyone. I hope you are well. Hope you are well today too. Lovely to see you. We've got, if I can click on it, there, Turbo Stream saying good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. We've got Nathan. Good evening, all. Good evening to you. Digwell says biblical rain earlier today. Could not believe the number of cars without lights on. 1 in 4, I reckon, and many with running lights. No rear lights. Shocking, really. I wonder if sometimes automatic lights that come on when they sense it dark is to blame. I don't think they come on when it's wet because it's still light. I don't know. Could be wrong. Kate says, good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Hargrave Gas, evening all. Hope you've had a great week. My tomatoes just keep. It goes on, says, my tomatoes just keep. I think they just keep coming. No blight yet. Fantastic, isn't it? It's been a good year for tomatoes, I've got to say. Stuart Jackson, evening, Richard and Veg Army. Good evening to you. Digwell says, use JBA Blight Guard. No blight ever. Anna Jones says, evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Aioli Cookalong. Cool. Yeah, oh yeah, I know the aioli is in the Cookalong. Sorry. I thought you said hot aioli. That's what confused me, the hot part. Nicholas says, hi, lovelies. Joining you from A&E in London. May have blood clots in both legs and swollen legs after the past week away. Got to have med ultrasound, so may on be with you a little while. Hope you're okay. I'm very sorry to hear, Nicola, you are in hospital. Hope you get well soon. Hope you are okay. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's talk about garlic. Let's put your hands up first of all. Who likes garlic? Who has it? Or who who enjoys using garlic in their cooking? I want to say who enjoys eating garlic, and I think that's a bit of a that's a bit of a hard one to answer because I do like eating garlic. I'm not sure I would eat. I do eat it meat sometimes, but it's not really a meal. It's just something that we add to dishes, I think I would say. But I do enjoy it. I do enjoy our garlic, and there's a lot of different versions or a lot of different varieties out there, a lot of different types of garlic. But for me, I love growing it. Digwell says you're cooking aioli. Yes, I am cooking. Well, is it cooking? Good question. Thumbs up. From Nicola. Jenny says, I'm tempted to harvest all my tomatoes and pull them up, all healthy but fed up with split fruits from the very much needed rain. I'm happy for them to ripen in the kitchen. Yeah, I haven't had that problem myself, but I've done quite well with all my tomatoes. I haven't had them split, but they've done well. I'll get my words out tonight. Jenny's showing her hand, so she likes to eat garlic. Kate says, "Oh goodness, sorry to hear that, Nicola. Hope you're okay." Digwell has raised his hand as well. Jenny says, "Hope you're okay, Nicola. Keep us posted." And Kate says, "Absolutely love garlic, eating and growing." Hargrave, thumbs up, love garlic. Lotted Chef, also thumbs up, loves garlic. Turbo Extreme, not a garlic eater or a grower. Stuart says yes to garlic. And Anna Jones says, "Not me." Interesting, interesting. What is it about those that don't like garlic? What is it that you don't like? For me, I love garlic. I love the flavor. I think it's very enticing. Yes, it can be quite smelly, but it's a very, you know what garlic smells like. It's a very distinct smell. It's a very distinct flavor as well. And I think um, it is pretty unique in that sense. Nicholas says, "Kate, Jenny, thanks. Just painful legs and painful." Digwell says, "You got there in the end. LOL to me. Thank you very much." Yes, I did get there in the end. I got exactly what you meant. Dabby Swim says, "No blight here, but probably because the tomatoes didn't germinate. So tomatoless." There you go. That's why you didn't get blight, because you got no tomatoes. Although potatoes could get blight on the potatoes as well. Anyway, back to this garlic conversation. So it seems like most of you do like tomatoes, but there are one or two of you that aren't so keen. Interesting, interesting. Now, out of all of you that do like to grow garlic, how many of you grow it? Let's see a raise of hands on how many of you actually grow garlic. I do. I'll be honest, I grow garlic every single year. I know there's a lot of debate whether it is worth growing, but for me, I think it is well worth growing. The flavor is absolutely brilliant. Um, I use it. I describe it more as a herb. I think I would use it, and the reason I grow it every year is because we've got it so that we do have enough garlic that we can use all year round. We tend to plant, my garlic goes in the ground around the 20th of September, so in about 2 weeks' time, I will pop my garlic into the ground. It will stay in that ground, growing all over the winter, where it will grow absolutely fine. Um, in the spring, it will suddenly put on loads of growth, and then the middle of next year is when we harvest our garlic. Usually, I get fairly decent garlic. I actually save the largest bulbs of each variety to plant again the following year, so that we are constantly growing good garlic, and we're constantly saving those genes. Really, really quite easy to grow, but we'll get into that in just a moment. Over on Instagram, Jay Beluzik has joined. I think that's Jonathan, the guy who designed my logo. Turbo Stream says, "Oh no, I've read that one." Jenny says, "For those who don't like garlic, have you tried elephant garlic? Not as strong, very mild, etc." Yeah, elephant garlic it's a much bigger bulb, but it's more closely related to leek. I still think it's delicious. I like leeks anyway, but I still think it's delicious. It's just a much, much bigger bulb, and it really does less mild. It's got a slight hint of garlic. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but there's not as much of a garlic taste or flavor to it, but it's definitely a much bigger bulb. Digwell says, "Many a pot of garlic because of restaurants, etc., using too much in the recipe. It should be used as a flavor enhancer, not a main ingredient." Depends on the dish, doesn't it? Such as the aioli, garlic aioli that we're doing. You need garlic in that. Nicholas says, "I'm looking forward to growing elephant garlic, Jenny, next year." Absolutely. Digwell's place that hands up. You're growing it. I didn't think you did. Have you given it a try? Stuart says, "I try it every year. It seems to do better at school than at home." Now, this is actually something that I've noticed. So I grow it at home and I grow it on my allotment. And the garlic that grows on my allotment seems to do better than what grows at home. So what is the reasoning behind that? I think it's because the allotment gets more sun. It's less shady than my plot here at home. So I think, and it would make sense, garlic being a Mediterranean, it loves the sun. It does better on the allotment. That being said, my home garlic isn't too shabby either. I have learned a few tricks. Like, you do need some really rich compost full of organic matter. Um, and I find I'm adding compost to the garlic beds at the moment just before planting. But I also found you need to go deep when you plant your garlic, a good 10 centimeters deep. That seems to produce some of the best bulbs, bigger bulbs. Jenny has put her thumbs up, but not enough, growing more this year. Uh, Kate has put her hands up. Nicola says, I've got garlic growing already. Crikey, that is early. Jenny says, keep us posted on your elephant garlic, Nicola. Nathan says, not had to buy garlic for about 3 years. I'll come into that in a moment, actually. I've got a comment or something to share with you on that. Hargrave Gas says, not grown any this year. Had some issues with alliums, generally white mold, so took a year off. So, yeah, garlic is a member of the allium family, closely related to leeks and onions and a few others. And white mold or white rot is a common problem on, or can be a common problem on onions and garlic or any members of the allium family. It's one of those that once you get it, it's very, very difficult to get rid of. Very difficult to get rid of, but you just got to ride it out sometimes. Digwell says, okay, I mean in normal recipes, not ones based in garlic. Yeah, I was being very flippant. But I know what you mean. When some restaurants add a lot of garlic to non-garlicky dishes. I get what you mean there. Anna Jones says, I keep meaning to try elephant garlic too. Normal garlic, just too strong. Elephant garlic is a really good option. I actually do grow elephant garlic every year. I save my biggest bulb again and I plant that the following year. And my elephant garlic does get that big as my head. So definitely one that I highly recommend growing. As I say, it's not a true garlic. It's not as garlicky as our true garlic, but it is a good alternative. Now, true garlic, I mentioned about buying from a supermarket earlier. One of the things that I did this season, and I say this season as in the season that's just coming to an end, is I did a bit of an experiment in my garden. I got given a load of more garlic about this time last year, and I planted that out alongside my existing varieties of garlic. And we did do quite well. We did very, very well with them. But I went to a supermarket and I bought a garlic bulb and I planted that I broke that bulb into all the cloves and I planted those cloves out to see how that would compare to the garlic I grow at normal times. And actually, we did okay from growing garlic from a bulb from the supermarket. I was actually really, really surprised. And the reason I was surprised is that we're always told that the garlic from supermarket is usually grown in Spain or somewhere where they have much better climates, and they shouldn't grow very well here in the UK. Well, that's not the case. It did grow very well. I've got to say, it did grow very well. As good, maybe slightly smaller, but nothing to really worry about. But as good as all my other garlic. So we ended up with some decent garlic. How many varieties have I got now? About 7 different varieties that I'm growing, and they all have their own different flavors and techniques. How many varieties of garlic do you grow if you are growing it? I've read that one. Idaho has joined. She says hello to Idaho. Rob says good evening from the pub. How lovely. Anna Jones saying hello. Digwell says onion white rot, grow something else in the bed for 2 years and water that with a garlic wash. It activates the sclerotia and then finds no alliums and dies off. After 6 to 10 they die off. There you go. That's one way of dealing with allium rot. Okay, everyone's saying hello to each other. I did not know that. That's a good trick. And again, I've not suffered with allium white rot myself. I've always managed to avoid it. Now, I've already mentioned that I tend to plant my garlic around the 20th of September. That's my wedding anniversary, and that's generally the day I try and get my garlic into the ground. It might be a little bit too early, to be fair, but I get some good growth before that winter comes in. Now, one of the key things with garlic, if you read some of the old books, they would tell you not to plant garlic until January. And then if you read modern ones, they tell you September, October, November to plant your garlic. And the reason for this is that garlic actually needs a period um, of being cold before, so that it forms, so that the garlic forms cloves. If it doesn't get that period of being cold, it stays as a big lump of garlic. It doesn't split into cloves. Now, the period itself is actually only needs to be below 10 degrees C for 2 weeks. So in the UK climate, that is pretty easy over winter. And that is also why generally people will plant their garlic in sort of early or late autumn, early winter. Um, some people, and I've done experiments where I haven't planted my garlic out until sort of May, and I still actually did get the garlic to split into cloves. It still split into cloves, but it didn't get a very good garlic. It was very small garlic. So I would say you could get away with planting garlic up until February, March, unless you get an exceptionally warm year, a warm spring. But 10 degrees C isn't that warm in the grand scheme, but it also isn't that cold either. And all it is, as I said, that period of cold is to cause that garlic, to trigger that garlic to split into cloves rather than being a big bulb. I don't know, has anybody had any problems with their garlic other than David Hargrave Gas? He's already said about allium white rot. Has anybody ever had it where their garlic didn't break up into bulbs? Rob says, right, I'm going back to my beer. Garlic beer is a thing I've heard, isn't it? Digwa says, I put mine in the fridge one year. It works for hardnecks and not for softnecks. So it might be a cheat. You can put it in the fridge to force that or to trigger that thing, that emotion, that I don't know what to call it, to trigger it to work. But the difference, Digwell said, hardneck and softnecks. Now, hardnecks and softnecks apply to the stem of the garlic, the foliage that goes up, and it's actually quite an important factor to work out if your garlic is ready. So softnecks, when the garlic is ready in about mid-July, mid-June, just after the summer equinox, the softnecks will actually, stem will fall over, but hardnecks, they will stay upright. So you don't get that sign that they are ready. There are a few other things with hardnecks and softnecks. Does anybody know any other differences between hardnecks and softnecks? This is your chance to show off your knowledge. Stuart says, I think you're correct. As a garlic bed at school is in full sun, at home it is in part shade. Last year, my garlic at home didn't into cloves. Well, there you go. That explains a lot. It does need full sun. If it didn't go into cloves, that's because it didn't get that period of cold. As I say, it's quite a short period and not particularly warm weather. So unless you've got a heat trap in your soil somewhere, you'll probably find if it was okay. It's a weird one, but yeah, that explains it. Full sun makes all the difference. Tab Extreme says a plot holder said he plants his garlic on the shortest day and harvests on the longest day. That is an old school way of thinking about it. That is what people used to do. And if you read some old books, that is what they would recommend. But as we've developed more and got better at growing our garlic, we've learned a bit more about it, that sort of rule doesn't quite work, and we get better garlic just by planting it that bit earlier. Toby Clark 55555 has joined over on Instagram. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well. Digwell says, yes, I am growing it again. This year I used a Tesco bulb and had the best ever crop with the biggest bulbs. Always had bad results and wasted money from named ones. So this is an interesting experiment because I was quite impressed with the bulb I got from a supermarket, probably from Tesco's as well. I do grow different varieties. I've got very early white, which is just an early variety of garlic. We've got Rhapsody white, Cork white, Mersey white, and something else that I can't remember. But you notice they all have that word white on the end, Wight, as in Isle of Wight. And that's because they have probably been grown and bred at the garlic farm on the Isle of Wight, which is a very good place. It's not that far from me, really, but it's a very good place to go visit on your holidays. Jenny says storage. One store's better than the others. Got hard neck to soft necks. Yep, storage is one thing that hard necks and soft necks make a difference. Storage, definitely. Turbo Stream, I've no idea as I don't eat it. Okay. Why don't you eat it? That's my next question. A lot of chefs scrapes. So you can get scrapes up the side of garlic. Yep. Generally on the soft neck because that's generally when they're trying to fall over and pop those scrapes into the soil to sort of like Egyptian walking onions. They're trying to just move a bit more. Jenny says soft neck stores better. Degra says soft necks have more cloves in 2 rows. But interesting, isn't it? It's a big difference. But yeah, soft neck do store better. Soft neck, you do get more cloves and you generally get 2 rows and you get scrapes as well. Big difference, big difference. You may be wondering, what's the point? Scrapes on a flower head. Yes, sorry. I'm thinking of the things that are up the side, aren't I? They're called scrapes. I can't remember. Perhaps you could fill me in a bit more on that. But yeah, soft necks generally store better and easier to tell when they are ready. One of the big signs that I usually use is when the bits and pieces go brown, when the foliage goes brown. That gives me a good sign that they are going to be ready. Bubbles. That's the word I was looking for. You sometimes getting up and growing on the side of your garlic. Bubbles. Tab Extreme says, I don't like the taste of garlic, so no point in growing it. That's one of the golden rules. Don't grow anything you're not going to eat. So another thing when it comes to garlic preparation, this is something we can do at the moment, preparing the soil for growing garlic. What do you do to prepare your soil for growing garlic? So at the moment, my garlic goes in where my summer brassicas, my summer cabbages, cauliflowers, broccoli, calabrese, they are going into where they were. So I've cleared the beds. I've harvested all the cabbages and cauliflowers I'm going to get out of those beds. And then I've added a good thick layer of well-rotted compost straight from my compost bin. I was doing it today, funnily enough, down on the allotment, just a few wheelbarrows onto each bed, giving it a good rake to make sure it goes everywhere. Of course, that's what we want. And then, of course, we want to add a bit of feed or bit of fertilizer to the soil as well. I like to add a garlic fertilizer that I get from the garlic farm. It's relatively cheap. We just pour it on, but there's other feeds and fertilizers that we could use. Digger says, I just top up my no-dig beds, same as every vegetable. Just adding more compost, just like I do. More compost, a very, very important thing to do. I think the value of compost is underrated unless you are a no-digger like myself, like Digger. I think many of you out there are no-diggers now. Adding just a load of compost, topping them up, makes all the difference. Anybody else doing any preparation? What about feeds and fertilizers? What feeds and fertilizers do you use for your garlic? As I said, I use a proprietary one from the garlic farm, designed specifically for garlic, and it works quite well. I probably should add a bit more of it because I can be a little bit mean with how much I pot on, but it works well. Jenny says, growing my garlic in pots this year. They were in my way in the raised beds. I wanted to mulch, but they were in the way. I used to grow them in pots and it works better for me. Yeah, I mean, I always mulch my garlic anyway. I wait for it to germinate, of course. Once it's growing, and once it's at a big enough that I feel it can benefit from a mulch, then I mulch it anyway. Now, in the past, that's been grass clippings. I would prefer to use compost, but I'm not always able to produce enough compost. But grass clippings have worked really well for me in the past. I'm moving more these days onto straw because I'm finding straw is working really, really quite well for me. And it's cheap enough that I can really mulch around my garlic with it. Kate says, I've used the garlic farm fertilizer, always works well. It is a good stuff. It's not the cheapest, but then how much is it actually? So somebody go on to the garlic farm and find out how much garlic, the tub of garlic fertilizer is these days. And how that compares with, say, using something like blood, fish and bone or bone meal, all of which can be good for garlic as well, of course. Now, when the garlic is growing, as I say, I do mulch. I do water when it is dry. I try and make sure we do keep that soil moist. Garlic does love moisture at its roots. But what we don't want to do, of course, we don't want it to be waterlogged. We want it to be free draining, decent soil that drains away. We do not want waterlogging. Very important because that can, of course, lead to rots. Where was I going with that? But in terms of feed, generally speaking, I don't add, other than the garlic farm fertilizer, I might add once a month. I don't have to add much in the way of any other feeds or fertilizers. We could, of course, add something like a liquid seaweed feed. Probably wouldn't do too bad. Probably would benefit it from it, but I don't feel the need, to be honest. Digwell says £6.50 a tub. It's not bad, is it? Not bad price. It depends on how big the tub is, thinking about it, because I've got a small one, which has lasted me for a few years now. Quite a few years. What varieties of garlic are you growing? Do you know what varieties you are growing? Over to you. And of course, don't forget, if you've got any questions or anything you want to add, please do add it in the chat. I tell you what, while you ponder on that, I have been making some garlic aioli in today. And I thought I'd share that with you as this week's cook-along. Hey! Make some food with me. Come on, everybody. We're gonna make some food. Let's go. Okay, so for this week's recipe, we're going to make something out of garlic. And I've decided I'm going to make a garlic aioli, which is a lovely little garlicky sauce. Basically, in simple terms, it's garlic mayonnaise. Nothing complicated. So we've got 2 egg yolks in the bowl. Into the masher, I'm just adding 4 cloves of garlic. You notice I haven't peeled them because we just squeeze it. Out comes the garlic, separating it from the outer sheaths. Saves us a lot of time, completely a lot of time. Anyway, we've got the garlic into the bowl with the eggs. We're going to add a teaspoon of Dijon mayonnaise, and then we'll just give it a bit of a mix. Just get all that garlic down as well. That's sprayed on the side. This should be a fairly easy one to do, but we'll give it a good mix. Certainly think it's going to smell garlicky. I'm just going to make sure. I'm pretty confident we got all the garlic out of there. Yeah, we did. That is one of my time-saving tips. Now, this is where it's going to start getting difficult, because what we've got to do now, like making any mayonnaise, is just slowly trickle some oil in. Now you want a good, decent oil. I've used a blended olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil works just as well. Some oils work better than others for making mayonnaise. We're just going to trickle it in slowly. The key with making any mayonnaise is to trickle it in really quite slowly, because what we don't want is for it to separate. This bit does take quite a while, but I can feel the mix is sort of already starting to thicken up. Of course, it would be easier to use a spinning machine, a food processor, to do this, but that's cheating, and we want to do this all ourselves in some ways. Right, that is starting now. If you look, it's just starting to look like it's becoming a mayonnaise. So by the way, this is about 250 millilitres of oil we're adding. Well, I think this garlic aioli is more or less all made, just as well, because my arm's starting to really hurt. So let's go see what it tastes like back in the studio. So here we go, got a small pot of this garlic aioli. I would call it garlic mayonnaise, to be honest, but garlic aioli is what it's meant to be called. I often hear it on cooking shows. I'm a bit disappointed that's all it is, garlic mayo. But the question is, what does it taste like? That's nice. That's very nice. Nice bit of garlic to that. Just right amount of garlic, but tasty. As good, all good mayonnaise should be. If you've got a way of using garlic, any recipes you want to share, then let us know in the comments. Of course, you can actually now find that recipe over on the veggrowlpodcast.co.uk. Over on Instagram, the Messy Allotment Tea has joined, and she says it looks great. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well. Ballysilian, haven't seen you for a while. Been missing, but that's me back. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well, young man. Hope everything's been good with you. Digwell has got a good question. Why are there so many feeds and which one is right? Garlic Farm 5016, Elixir 51910. By the way, these numbers relate to the MPK figures. King Seed 464, Kempeg 4612, etc., etc. So this is a good question. This is a very good question. And this is one of the things I've always felt about a lot of feeds and a lot of fertilizers, is that they're very... When you buy a feed or a fertilizer with a given ratio of the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, It's very general, and everybody's soil is different. Everybody's soil is different. Some soils may be less nitrogen, and some soils may be rich in nitrogen, and so on. So sometimes my belief, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, is that it's more about finding the right feed that does best for your soil, i.e., what works best for you. So it's a case of experimenting and finding what gives you the best garlic. Now, I do say, I'm going to stress this once again, it does depend on your soil. I've recently done a soil test here at the Veg Grower Podcast and tested my soil and found that nitrogen and potassium levels were pretty good, but phosphorus was a little on the low side. So we had things that need phosphorus as opposed, was it phosphorus or was it? No, nitrogen was a little on the low side. So we add nitrogen to the soil instead of a generic thing. That is my explanation. Plus, it's also sales, isn't it? Everybody wants to try and get the best garlic and what have you. It's all about sales. But for me, it's all about finding what's right for your soil. Ballysin says it's very confusing. Good question, Digwell, says Idaho. Ballysin says, been watching YouTube, but always days later. Haven't had much time. I know how you feel. It's all very busy at the moment. Digwell says a bit of saffron makes it more yellow. Interesting. Didn't think about adding saffron. Digwell says, I always roast a garlic for a Sunday roast in with spuds, and when they are half done, leave the skin on. Yeah, I'm with you. We've got so much garlic, we will be doing that as well. Absolutely. What have we got? Digwell says it's all down to the Lieberg's law of minimum. If one of the essential plant nutrients is deficient, plant growth will be poor, even when all of the other essential nutrients are abundant, as Richard says. I did something right. I said something that Digwell agrees with. Yeah, I do think that when we're buying generic, and I know this is slightly off topic, but it's not, it came up with this garlic fertilizer. We buy generic all-round or fertilizers that specialize in certain things. Tomato feed, for example, is it potassium or phosphorus, one of the two, that it is higher in because it wants to promote fruiting. It wants to promote fruits, and any fruit and plant needs those nutrients in order to produce good fruit. So that's generally why. But if it's not in the soil, but we're higher in nitrogen and everything else, it can cause issues. Again, if you don't know what's going on in your soil, how can you look after it properly is my current sort of thinking. I'm not saying everybody can rush out, do a soil test on your soil, because it can be a little misleading, but often it's about looking at your plants and seeing what they actually need rather than what we think they need. This was something on, where was it? Clarkson's farm, where Andy Keto came along and was doing this sort of thing where Epsom salts was used in place of nitrogen. This is probably getting way too scientific, isn't it? But that's where I am currently going. I think it's more about choosing the right nutrients that the soil needs. Sorry, it's all about the soil. The soil needs. So, what recipes or what do you like to do with your garlic? Share with me. Digwell said, you said it, it's all down to the soil. That's why I use Escalate, Curvate 8, no NPK, just every other nutrient. Not heard of that stuff, but I'm with you. It is all down to the soil. This is the biggest secret. I mean, wouldn't even say secret, but if you want to be a successful gardener, if you want to be a successful vegetable gardener, it's all about the soil. You've got to look after the soil. You've got to get nutrients in the soil in order to produce good plants and therefore good food. I'm a big believer in no-dig gardening. I'm not saying everybody should go over to. Well, I'd like to see everybody go over to no dig gardening, but everybody's different. No, excuse me, no dig gardening may not work for everybody, but it certainly works for me. It's all about looking after that soil and improving that soil to suit what we have. I've definitely noticed. I'm going off topic again. I've noticed a difference in my soil on the allotment this year. So where on my allotment I do struggle to produce enough compost. It's one of the reasons I started going to using a straw mulch. But I do struggle to produce enough compost to cover all my beds every year on the allotment. Now, what I noticed this year, I've had a couple of beds where not much organic matter has been added for a couple of years now due to not being able to produce enough compost, not being able to get organic matter on site. And what I've noticed these years, those beds that have had less organic matter in the last few years, they have produced less and everything has struggled to grow in them. If I've sown seeds, they've barely came up. Parsnips have came up, but they are looking awful for this time of year. They're looking really, really poor. But in other beds where I've sown seeds directly, where we've added loads of organic matter and it's really nice and full, they seem to be doing okay. They seem to be coping okay, even when we directly sow. So adding organic matter is the key to good, strong plants, good compost, etc., etc. But not just plants. There's a million and well, yeah, it is all just plants. I'm really struggling with my words today. I'm all over the place. In the comments working because I've not seen anything for a while. But yeah, back to garlic. What do you cook with your garlic? I'm just playing around with a screen here. I can do things I never knew I could do. They changed things up and made it better. Interesting. Yeah. So, what do you do with your garlic? Oh, actually, that's a good point. What do you do with your garlic after you harvested it? So, I usually harvest my garlic around the longest day, get it out of the ground, give it a good clean let it dry off in the greenhouse first. Sorry. Place it in the greenhouse and just let it dry. And then I'll wipe all that mud and the outer layers off just to give myself a nice clean garlic. Cut off the roots. And again, I'll hang that up to dry for a little bit longer, another couple of weeks. And then I usually find it's ready for storage. Now, we could tie it into plats, which is a common thing to do with garlic. Personally, I've done that in the past. I tend to cut the stems off, pop them in a bag, and we'll use them like that. Or I make a lazy garlic. Now, you've probably seen lazy garlic in supermarkets. It's just a jar of garlic. And what I do is I take a load of garlic, take all the bulbs, clear away take a load of cloves, clear away all the papery stuff, and then pull it in a liquidizer, choppy up thing, food processor with vinegar, chop it up all nice and small, and then it stores really well. And then whenever we need a bit of garlic, we just take a teaspoon out of that and throw that in with cooking. Really good way to use your garlic. Lazy garlic, it's called. Really, really good way of doing it. So for some reason, the comments have gone quiet. I don't know why. There we go. Gary says, my favorite thing to do is to plait it so I can hang it in the kitchen or give as gifts. I never thought of doing that. Soft necks is better for this, I found. So I thought I have plaited my garlic in the past, but I have found it rather time consuming and not the easiest thing to do. I think you do need to harvest your garlic a little bit earlier than most others, but it does work. It does work. Jenny says, dry it, then I either store it in a basket or braid it. I want to make the recipe Scott shared earlier in the year for an easy garlic bread. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that was off the top of my head, but that was a good one. Gary says it is very tricky, talking about the braiding. Digwell says, hard to plait hardneck if it is harvested at the correct time. Yeah, you really need it to be a little bit softer. That's why I don't do it. I saw, excuse me, I think it was Charles Dowding. He did a video where he's done something a bit different. Basically, taken a metal coat hanger and unraveled that, and basically just taken each garlic and pushed that metal hanger through through the stem of the garlic, and then followed that up, which I quite like. I think that's probably a quicker, easier way to store the garlic than plaiting it. Just simply pushing it on, a bit like you do with chilies and making a, what do you call it, raster, something like that. Stuart says, with my garlic, I dry it, then I use ASAP, as we tend to use it really fast. Yeah. Garlic does have a tendency, if you can't grow lots of it, you do tend to use it really, really fast. I love the stuff. Absolutely love the stuff, though. I'm sure anybody can tell if you're watching this. Now, don't forget, we've already done the cook-along. Don't forget, look at the bottom of the screen. You got hashtag cook-along for a cook-along, or hashtag mission for a mission for next week. Now, the mission for this week was to take a quince cut-in, but I've not been able to find any quinces anywhere. So I haven't been able to take a cut-in. I'm on the mission to find a quince in order to take a cut-in. Over on Instagram, Toby Clark 55555 says, with garlic, you could blend it up and pot in ice cube trays and freeze. Handy, quick portions when you need them. Good tip. Good idea there. I do like that as well. Again, a bit like my lazy garlic, but just in ice cube form. I've read that one. Andrew Norris has joined. Evening all, just back from burning in the meadow. What have you been burning? Digwell says, don't braid, plait it. Make a big loop with string and then just knot each garlic stem on every other side of the loop. Hard to explain, easy to watch on a video. Is there a video on somebody's channel at all you can direct us to, Digwell, that might tell us more or give us the better idea? Gary says, I ordered Province White, a soft neck variety, but I received a hard neck variety instead. That's unusual. That's very unusual. I mean, I am seeing at the moment garlic is for sale in garden centres, as are overwintered onions. Is anybody here going to be growing overwintered onions from set? Is anybody bothering with that? Bally City says, Digwell, Googled that eschalate stuff everywhere, says no longer available. Digwell says, to Andrew, if we did not know you, that would sound bad. Turbo Stream says, I managed to post a photo to the community tab yesterday. Did you see it, Richard? It only works on a mobile for me. I didn't. No. I was on there earlier today as well, so I've not seen it at all. That's annoying. I'll have to check it out. I'll have to keep an eye on that. Digwell says, mine. Yeah, his video, his YouTube channel, if you want to see a video on how to do that with garlic. Good idea. Good idea. Jenny says, I think it's important to give your garlic bulbs good airflow in storage. Also, every now and then go through and throw away any mouldy, etc. Yes, and also that reminds me of something that I do get most years. I didn't get it this year, though. Or did I? Leek rust, which affects my garlics, and it affects my leeks as well. And it's little red, like blisters on the side of your garlic, on your garlic leaves. And it's pretty bad. It comes through quite a lot, and it just stops photosynthesis. I normally get it towards the end of the growing season, so it's not the end of the world, but it just slows down photosynthesis and makes us sort of uneasy about what is going on. But it's not the end of the world. It is important to stop leek rust. You do need good airflow, so giving it plenty of space to let through the foliage, to let the air flow, makes all the difference. This is why I'm doing more different planting this year with my garlic, trying to allow a bit more airflow around. Stuart says, just for the group's info, I've passed the supporters club seeds onto a child at school as he wanted to be in charge of the garden at school. Win. Excellent stuff. And Gary says, I'm growing from seed this year. after last year's seed success. Yeah, I'm growing some from seed, my overwintering ones, but I'm also growing some from sets. I brought some sets when I was in the range the other day, just so they are ready. They're £5 for 3 packets, I think it was, something like that. I'm not a fan of. I'm not the biggest fan of growing onions from sets. I think they're better from seed, although there's a lot more work to do, but they give better results. And overwintered onions, we know we're going to get problems with what's it called? Where they're likely to bolt towards the end of the season for growing onions. So, but I'm still going to do it. Again, it's that thing I said with garlic. It's about having something growing in the garden that actually looks good. Andrew says, Digwell, no wicker man. Yeah. Chili Kate says, hi, sorry, relate. Had a lovely weekend camping. How lovely. Lovely to see you. And you had nice weather for camping this weekend as well. Turbo Swoop says, I sowed winter onions from seed this year, but last year grew from sets. Most went to seed, though, so wouldn't bother again. It's a shame. That's a shame. And chances are, if they bolted, it's because they're stressed. So with how dry it's been this year, it's not really a surprise, is it? There we go. What else have we got? Digwell says better from seed. Less chance of bolting as seeds have a second year to panic into making seeds. Seeds have limited time left. Yeah. And Jenny says when an onion bolts, the flowers are great. Oh, great for pollinators. So not a complete loss. No, not a complete loss. And to be honest, if you snap off the flower spike before as it puts up the flower spike, you snap it off. You can actually use that like spring onions anyway, but it causes less issues. It just means they're not so good for storage. But hey, these are all the things that we have to do. Right, as we are now joined by Chili Kate, it's time to show off our newish feature. We've been setting a seed each month that we are sowing as a group, and this month for September, it's watercress. Okay, so it's time for this month's seed of the month, where we're going to be sowing watercress. It's a variety called Aqua. I've had this seed for quite a while now, so should be a good one to see how we get on. Now, I quite often do grow watercress. In fact, we've got somebody in our audience who works at a watercress farm. He will know a damn sight lot more about growing watercress than what I can tell you. For me, the key thing we've got to remember is to keep the watercress damp at all times. It needs moisture. It doesn't need to be in a pond or anything, it just needs moisture at all times. It does better in a pond, but certainly wet at all times. Here's the seeds, very, very tiny little seeds. So we're just going to sprinkle those just over the surface of this. And this is just some standard seed compost. And what we're going to do, we'll place this in our auto trays and wait for germination. Can be a little bit slow. The key thing we've got to remember, keep this compost moist. It is a bit dry at the moment. I'm just going to tamp it down to make sure the seeds are in good contact with the compost. This compost is a bit dry at the moment, but once it's got some water into it, it'll be absolutely fine. Now, there is a second way of growing watercress, and that's simply going to go buy some from a supermarket or somewhere, take a cutting and pop that in some water, which I did last week, and I got a picture to show you of that now, and so you can see it's starting to root. Added to that, of course, last month we sowed pak choi, and this is how they are getting on now. They're almost ready to start getting outside, looking very, very good. So up to you guys now. Sow some watercress and let us know how you get on. Now, I realised I forgot to show you how it looks like when I've the bit I took or mentioned. I just stuck in some water. So this is some watercress that I brought from a supermarket. I just took a couple of pieces out and threw that into this tray of water. And as you can see, we're getting roots already growing up on the side. So very, very easy to grow effectively from cuttings. We do have to change this water every couple of days to try and make sure it's fresh and what have you. But we are very, very easily getting watercress growing. Now, of course, growing it from seed will be interesting to see how it compares as well. But I'd love to see how you get on. This is a challenge, a bit of a community project. Try and grow watercress. Now, interestingly, I was sent some information this week that watercress now has to be called watercress in the same way that certain products, Jersey Royals, have to be grown in Jersey to be called Jersey Royals. Champagne has to be grown in has to be from the Champagne region of France. Watercress has something similar. Watercress has to be grown in flowing, as I understand it, flowing water in order to be called watercress. And the reason this is, some people, it won't affect the home gardener, but some commercial growers have been growing watercress in pots, but not actually in water. And the idea here is it's watercress, it's an aquatic plant. We want it to grow as an aquatic, and that's what watercress is meant to be. Landcress is similar, but not as good. Not as good. Jenny says, love growing watercress in one of our ponds. Absolutely. It's so easy to grow. As I said, I'm growing it from seed, as you've just seen. I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. We will keep a close eye on that. But growing it certainly from piece of watercress from the supermarket is much easier, just getting that to root. Kate says, I've got watercress in our pond. We went to a pond plant place open day and they recommend potting it in for 2 weeks to help clear up a green pond, and it's working well. Yes, I think I did hear that about watercress, actually. It's probably from you. So if you've got a lot of algae in your pond, apparently if you pot in some watercress, it will help clear up that algae. I didn't know that. I don't quite understand the science behind that, what's going on, but as always, if it works, it works. It's a good thing. The other thing is with watercress, as I said, it is an aquatic plant, so it can. If I've got a pond that I built here back at home, where I grow aquatic edibles such as watercress and things like that. I think we designed it, or we came up with this idea on this live stream, and it pays off. It's a good thing to do. Gotta love our edibles. Gotta love our edibles. Jenny says it's great at clearing the water. Lots of people use it in bird baths as it keeps the water clean. I did not know that, but I do now. So that's another reason to keep growing watercress. Just got to keep an eye on it and make sure it grows well. I'm also wondering how well it would do in something like the hydroponics. I suspect it will probably do really well in hydroponics. Chili Cat says, Chili Phil didn't want us to grow it in our pond again, but now he's reconsidering. Thanks, Kate. There you go. There you go. And it's amazing what you learn, isn't it, about this? I'm absolutely flabbergasted with how good watercress is. Digwell says the watercress uses up the nitrates that feed the algae. There you go. There you go. The thing with watercress, I hear a lot of people worried about liver fluke, but I think that's only going to really be a problem if you are in a river. The other problem, of course, stagnant water, but if it's moving, I don't think it'll be a problem. Again, you don't necessarily need it to be in a pond. You don't need it to be in water. It does better in water, but you just got to remember it loves water. It likes a lot of water. And E. coli, it can be a problem with watercress. I think that can be a problem with anything, can't it? It can be, E. coli is a big problem in anything that we eat. Is that found in water? Is that found? I'm just sort of thinking because there was an outbreak on a salad farm recently, and I'm wondering if they were using rainwater to, and that's how the E. coli spread. Don't know. Don't know. Don't know. Um, it's one of those things that I am often pondering about. So, has anybody ever grown? Anybody else got any other tips or tricks you can share about growing watercress? I'd love to hear more. Digwell says E. coli can contaminate watercress because it is grown in water that can be affected by fecal contamination. Okay, so that makes sense. So, how do you stop E. coli if you're growing? Let's think about this. If you're growing E. coli in a pond, for example, how can you stop it being contaminated by fecal contamination? And how does that apply when it comes to things like horse manure? I'm just thinking out loud here, just thinking out loud. Questions like that. Obviously, I'm no scientist, so yeah, lots of questions. Go on. Anybody got anything else they want to add to the garlic conversation? I feel that one is over, but I was wondering if it's anybody got any thoughts. Chili Kate says, so Chili Kate, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention it, but I'm going to anyway. Chili Kate actually works on a watercress farm and is involved a lot in the food industry. So it's in soil and animal poo, along with various other nasty bacteria. It's just the same everywhere. There we go. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. There we go. As you said, running water is best. Yeah, running water is best. Ginny Phil, I'd better stop defecating in the pond then if we're gonna. Oh yeah, it's probably a good thing. Your neighbours might be wondering what on earth you are doing, if that's the case. Oh, defecated in the pond. Oh god, that was so politely pot as well. That's made me chuckle a lot. Yeah, that would help stop E. coli. I guess that opens up questions, doesn't it? Because it must be for farms and stuff. All this sort of thing must be so difficult to stop getting into the water system and stuff like that, and it basically stop it getting into food. So questions, isn't it? It must be so difficult. Andrew says, Chili Phil, you can always pee on your compost heap if necessary. Yeah, I do that. I shouldn't admit that. I do that all the time on the allotment, partly because we've got no toilets on the allotment anyway, but because this is probably really odd conversation if somebody walks in on that, but your pee contains nitrogen, so it does well in the compost heap to help break down compost and produce compost. We've got so much compost material here at home at the moment. I've been chopping it up with the lawnmower this weekend because we've got this sort of climbing vine that comes over from our neighbours. It's like, but down at the front, it's what's it called? Jasmine. And then I don't know what it is towards the back, but it grows like mad. And Amanda went out there yesterday and cut it all back. And we chopped it all up for our compost. We had permission from our neighbours, don't worry. But so much compost material at the moment, which is exactly what we need. Because as I said, we're starting to use compost. We're spreading it on the allotment and on our vegetable beds. So we need to replace what we're using up at all times. So we need more compost material to replenish what we're going to have next year. Digwell says, it is, but the soil bacteria fights it off. We had to close down a watercress farm due to an extreme runoff from a dairy farm. Interesting. This is actually very interesting for me because I'm on doing a water sampler project at the moment as well. So that's a very interesting side of things. Stuart Jackson, just a reminder, share, like, and subscribe. Yeah, please do give us a like. Please do give us a follow. Please do give us a subscribe. And don't forget to click the notification so that you know when we go live. I feel it is about the right time for this little feature.
Picture ransom this or that. He's gonna get it off his chest. Let him take the foreign vet. Richard Rance.
I seriously have to change that music. It's not angry enough. Yeah, and I was actually sitting there dancing along to it when I'm meant to be getting angry. Anyway, so what am I going to get angry about this week? Well, it's hard to get angry at this, but I went into our local B&M this week. And I don't usually go into that shop. It's a cheap shop full of cheap tat, but sometimes it's just what you need. And it's quite close to my work, so it was quick and easy to pop in there on the way home from work. I went in it, and as outside, just as I'm going in, they had their flowers, their plants, which were looking pretty ropey. But they had loads of trays of violas, and each tray had about 30 plants, and these were 20p a tray. 20p. So, of course, I bought two of them. I looked at them first, and all they needed was a good watering, and they would have been fine. So I brought them home, bought them for 20p a tray, two trays, brought them home, watered them, and literally watered them at night. The next day, they were in good condition, looked absolutely fine. I've planted them on the allotment and in the garden, and they look fine. They've perked up and they've started growing quite well. So my rant here is something that I do get really annoyed with, of how wasteful some of these places can be. It literally just one bit of water and those plants were revived. They just were too dry. Now the B&M, basically they sold those at a loss just to get them out of their way, but the trays, the compost, the plants themselves all had a lot of energy going into it to try and produce those plants. Incredibly wasteful, and I don't reckon that they would have cost a lot more than 20p. Probably the tray itself would have cost a lot more than 20p. So why are B&M or places like that happy to sell things at a loss when all they got to do is look after their stuff a little bit better? I'm not talking about much better, but a daily watering at least. Why were they happy to sell things at a loss, but add to the waste problem that we have in this country? Why? That is my rant. Why were they doing that? Now, Idaho says, I like the idea of growing watercress in my indoor hydroponics, or just grow upland cress outside in the garden. Yeah, cress comes in several forms. You get land cress, watercress, and there's cress as well that you might grow as a microgreen too. Jenny says, I asked someone in a shop once why they reduce and not just water. They said it was because there was more stock on the way, so they need to shift them. Stock arrives by date, not by demand. That might be the answer to my rant, but that still feels very counterproductive. When we're all meant to be reducing the amount of waste we produce, we're meant to be looking after our planet that little bit better, reducing waste. And yet there they are throwing these things into the bin if they don't sell. And, I could live with it a bit more if it was compostable materials, but the tray itself is not compostable. And I very much doubt they actually have composting on site. My auntie, my cousin used to run a gardening business, and he had a show garden in a garden centre that my auntie would go along and just tidy up every now and then. And she would often raid the bins because of all these plants that garden centres were throwing out. And she took them home, she tended to them, brought them back to life, and then sold them for charity outside her house. It didn't take her long, and she made a fortune for charity, for Dogs Trust, I think it was, a dog's home, just doing that. Tab Extreme says, my local Aldi do this. The plants are almost always dead. Yeah. Yeah. It's annoying, isn't it? Digrat says, better to sell at a loss than not at all, I guess. Lack of staff to do these tasks. At my Tesco's, it is the trolley collector who waters them if he is not busy or on a day off. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with a garden centre. There's somebody there looking after the plants all the time. So there's something to be said for a garden centre. They're going to look after the plants. But would you feel happy that your plants that you are buying are not being looked after? No, I wouldn't be. Bally Cillian says, 100% agree. The time it took to put the reduced price on the plants, they could. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The time it took to put that reduced price on that sticker, they could have watered them in that time. Literally, it was one watering can over those two trays, put them on my asparagus bed, watered them, so I was watering my asparagus at the same time, and the next day they bounced back. It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. And that's my rant. That is my rant. I'm glad you kind of agree with me, or some of you do anyway. I mean, I do love a bargain. Don't get me wrong. I used to buy lots of things because they were a bargain. At this time of year in garden centres and Wilco's, remember Wilco's? When they used to sell them off cheap, it was at this time of year, and we would get bargains. We'd get currant bushes for 10p and so on. Jenny says, it is a crap system. That said, I do love coming home with some cheap plants. Our local shop saves the trays and leaves them to be taken by those who would like to like them. Invited to donate to charity. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. I'm all for the trays being reused. I think that should be done anyway. It's part of the reason I've got so many pots outside. And I also do love the fact that I get cheap plants from time to time. But at the same time, I'm well aware it's very wasteful, and we're meant to be reducing the amount of waste that we produce. We're meant to be being much more efficient. And shops should be leading the way, on that, in my mind. In my mind, they should be. Right. I tell you what, it might be a good idea to do is if we go and see. I think we might. I'm just going to upload the photos. But first of all, we've got some more. Kate says, I'm always down the sale sections. I see it as a chance. I think that's going to be. We'll find out in a moment. Jenny says, more annoying, those plants were imported in. Challenge to revive them, Kate says. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Don't disagree with that. It is a challenge to revive them, and you can get a bargain. And I'm all for bargains. I do love a bargain, and I think I try and share that a lot on our channel and everything that we do. I try and push for people to have a bargain, but at the same time, it's wasteful, and I think we've got to recognise that. And as Jenny says, the chances are they're probably imported in from another country. So, yeah, we've got to really think about that. Right, let's have a look at your photos and see what's going on. Let's see if I can. Yay, I can actually do that. I can do it. It's working. I haven't got to change things around so much. Excellent. So first of all, this is Nathan. He has been down at his local show and won all these prizes. Lots of firsts, seconds, thirds, and even won a cup for being in the vegetable show. It is the season for what I want to talk about next week, actually. Is anybody entering any village shows this year? Anybody entering any veg shows this year? Or is it too late to discuss that? But I want to talk about that a bit more next week. What we've got, this is Stuart Jackson, and he has grown his first ever passion fruit. He says he's had that tree for a bush climber, vine, whatever you might want to call it, for quite a few years. And here we go. He's produced his first passion fruit. We've got Beddoes, who's back with some of his humour. He's worked very, very hard. He did a thing. He made this pallet out of an old coffee table. Amazing stuff, isn't it? And that pallet will become useful if you need to transport any items. A lot of pumpkins, a large pumpkin, for example, would be great on that pallet. Digwell Shed is a plot shop for the first of the month. As you know, at the beginning of every month, I encourage you to take a photo of your allotment, your kitchen garden, whatever it may be, in order to keep track of how your garden is looking throughout the year and how things progress. Digwell's done that this month. It looks fantastic as always. And Kate has been very, very happy with the colours of her carrots. We can see some purples, some oranges, and things like that going on. Carrots are fascinating when they are different colours, aren't they? There's something very magical about them. Now, please do keep sharing your photos. We absolutely love seeing them. You can post them in our Facebook group, just like many of those photos. You can send them via direct message on social media. Apparently, you can do it on YouTube as well, but I haven't seen that. I'll look into that in just a moment once the show is finished. Or you can email me, richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Jenny says, Nathan, that is amazing. Well done. Kate says, well done, Nathan. Digwell says, total lunar eclipse starting in 15 minutes, full blood moon. I don't think we're going to see anything here, though, because it's still light out there. And it looks like it's not going to get dark enough anytime soon, but we'll keep an eye on that. So in about 7:30, just as this show finishes, the full total lunar eclipse should start. Thank you, Digwell, says Jenny. Digwell, I forgot to take a pic of plot 2. Too busy harvesting. Well, there's always next week. Turbo Extreme says, #mission, try and find my photo on the community tab. Yeah, we have got about 12 minutes left tonight. You've got to come up with a mission if you want it entered in the role and something to cook for next week. #mission, try and find my photo on the community tab is there. Turbo Extreme says, no chance of seeing the moon. It's pissing down here. It's not here. Although could do with a bit of rain. I've got to admit, I have noticed how much better my plants are looking after that good downpour that we had last week. It's been pretty dry this week. Let me rephrase that. We've had quite a few showers. It's been dry Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we had quite a few showers through the week, which are very, very welcome, of course. But our plants just look so much healthier and better after such a good downpour. Don't you think that our plants just look better after a good downpour? Andrew says, oh, nice ranty jingle. Crikey, you must be a bit far behind there. It needs more anger behind it, don't it? Digwell says, my weeds loved the rain. 40 mils in the last week. I can't remember how much we got, but it was quite significant. Quite a significant amount of rain that we got. 40 mils. I know throughout August, and I checked this last Sunday, so throughout August we had like 29 mils of rain throughout the entire month, and 27 of that was in the last few days. So, yeah. I don't know if anybody else has a weather station in their garden or in their allotment. They keep an eye on the weather. It's really handy to see just how your weather is doing and how much rain you get. Jenny says, my jungle patio with lots of edibles is really green and lush after the rain. Very happy. Yeah, it really does make things look much more lush, much more green, much, much healthier. I don't understand it in some ways because I'm still out there watering by hand. So they're still getting a good soak in. But there's something about when it rains that just seems to really give them that bit of better boost that they do benefit from. Digwell says you need a bit of heavy metal evil music for the rain. I think so, yeah. Something like, yeah. I'm trying to think. Something angry. Stuart says, oh, just lost it. we just lost it there. Stuart says, we have had a nice lot of rain, and guess what? My lawn is turned green and the weeds have come back everywhere. Yeah, but you just have to take the rough with the smooth sometime. If the weeds are coming back, it means there's life in the soil. It means there's hope. The soil is bouncing back. Digwell says it's all down to the ions. There you go, ions. All about the ions. David Stream says, I've been planting spring bulbs at home this week. 200 snowdrops and loads of tulips. Yep, going to be soon time, because they're also for sale in garden centres. Time to start planting our spring bulbs. I don't generally do, well, I do spring bulbs, daffodils, tulips, that sort of thing, just for the pollinators, just to bring in some of those early pollinators. I generally, what I do with my bulbs, my daffodils and things like that. So the first year they will grow in a pot, and then after that they go into the grass, into the garden. So any you're buying this year will go into a pot, and any last year's ones will go into the garden, but they will grow quite well. Terry Sue says, I've started to install wood beds in a redesign of my allotment for next year. Excellent. I do love to hear what you've been doing in your allotment, your kitchen garden this week. Perhaps I should bring that back. What have you done in this last week in your kitchen garden? One job, one task that you've been very, very proud of, such as Turbo Stream and his building new beds in the allotment redesign. For me, it has been mulching the soil ready for garlic. That has been my thing that I'm really proud of, just because I'm really pleased with the quality of the compost that I have produced. There's something about compost. You know when you get good compost, because it just smells good, it looks good, you can tell it is going to be good compost. There's just something about that really, really made me feel good about it. And I just took quite a few barrow loads, poured that over my beds, mulched them up. They're going to look better with all that organic matter that's being sucked into the soil, and start the worms bringing it down. All those nutrients they can get into the soil, it'll all come together really, really nicely. Toby Stream says, I need to reboot my allotment as it's not working the way it is. Sometimes you do have to stand back and think, well, what can I do differently? What will improve this? Stuart Jackson says, put new windows to my shed. 4 windows, 20 quid. Well happy. Waterproof shed at last. Excellent. Good job done there, Stuart. We do like sheds. We do like sheds. I'm very, very fond of especially my new shed, because it's absolutely pleasure. Although it does get very warm in there. It does get very warm. I'm in there sweating buckets. But hey, that's the joys of having a shed. Anybody else? What else have you got? What else have you done that you're very proud of over this last week? Please do share. And perhaps, well, I need to add new features to this show. I need to add more to it, because I think it needs more. Anyway, next week I want to talk about these sort of village shows, village fates, and what you've been doing to produce good. If you've taken part in them, what you've learned from it. I know some of you have taken part in them, as Nathan did earlier. What the secrets is, etc., etc. I want to talk about that. I haven't quite phrased it very well, but that's what I want to talk about next week. Kate says, I managed to clear a bed and add some brassicas before a migraine stopped me yesterday. I understand the migraine is painful, but you got that done. You got all that done. Let's focus on the positives. You've got a clear bed and some brassicas in. That's good. That's good. Good work. Have we got a cook along? Have you got a recipe that you would like me to do for next week? Anything you would like to throw in there, just hashtag cook along. I don't know. We haven't got an entry, so just throw it in there and tell me, or hashtag cook along as an idea of something you would like me to cook next week. Looking forward to seeing your answer on that. I'm trying to think. what have we done? What have we done? What have I done here at home? I've already spoken about trimming up the neighbours' vines. And that's given us a good lot of compost material. And that's tidied up the garden really nicely as well. We do get a lot of vines for some reason. Digwa says, I've stopped showing now, but happy to pass on all my experience. Yeah, that's what I want to find out. What experience, what made you stop, etc., etc. Get ready for that next week. Turbo Stream says, I grew some blackcurrant cuttings and then donated them to the allotment open day. They were the best cuttings too, full of buds, ready for next year. Absolutely. Digwell's going there with something with sweet corn. Oh, straight away. I know something I could do with sweet corn. Absolutely. That sounds. Oh, Stuart's got in there homegrown vegetable ragu. Cookalong, a sweet corn dish in there twice, Digwell. Pan con tomate. Oh, don't forget to remember all these because we now, I think it's about time, we then will have to go to that screen and you don't forget. There we go. What have we got? Let's change that to that. Don't forget, we need we got 3 entries so far. Still time. If you want to put one more entry in, I'll just wait a couple of 30 seconds or so. But also hashtag mission if you've got a mission for next week. We've already got one in the mission. I'm really not getting my words out very well today, but I'm going to give that 30 more seconds before I hit draw. So there's time if you still want to get a recipe in. Still time if you want to get a recipe in. Right, that feels like it's nearly 30 seconds. Kate's just said Spanish toasted bread with garlic rubbed on and grated fresh tomatoes with more garlic. Is that canned tomato? Is that the recipe? Let me know, but it's time to do the draw. So let's hit the draw and see who comes up. Let's see who comes up. It's going to be Digwell with, if I'm not mistaken, his sweet corn dish. So there we go. There's that for next week. Beto says, don't think I've said hello, but goodbye. Hello, goodbye. And the only mission has been the mission to find Turbo Stream's photo. That's what we will do for the mission next week. But lovely for Beddoes to pop in right at the end. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well. It is time now to pack up. I want to try and get more photos for next week if possible. I'd love to see lots and lots of photos of your food. I will try and set reminders, but love to see them more. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been good chatting about garlic. Hopefully some of you are going to go and grow more garlic this year. Give it a go. Hopefully you've learned a few tips and tricks. Not that it's hard because it is incredibly easy to grow garlic. But hopefully we've inspired you nonetheless. Right. Where's my asset to get out? Right, guys, thank you so much. We will be back again next Sunday, next Sunday at 6, where we'll do it all over again. Take care, guys. All the best.